Christian Horner's fall from grace wasn't just a quiet exit, it was a demolition in slow motion. For nearly 2 decades, Horner wasn't just the face of Red Bull Racing, he was Red Bull Racing. From the team's debut on the F1 grid in 2005 to their domination in the 2010 SN, their resurgence with Max Verstappen, Horner had his hands on every dial. So when he was sacked, it didn't feel like just a leadership shakeup. It felt like a cornerstone being ripped out of a fortress. What really made it sting wasn't just the brutal timing right before Red Bull launches its first ever in-house engine project, but how utterly complete the removal was. At first, some fans thought Horner might just fade quietly into a background advisory role or hold on to his directorships behind the scenes, but Red Bull wasn't interested in half measures. In the weeks following his public firing, Horner was quietly stripped of every official position he held in Red Bull's UK entities: Red Bull Racing, Red Bull Technology, Red Bull Powertrains, and even the 2026 engine project. All of it gone. The paperwork filed at the UK's Companies House confirmed it. Horner wasn't just out of a job, he was out of Red Bull entirely. And let's be honest, there was no way this breakup came cheap. Horner was reportedly under contract until 2030 on a salary somewhere in the range of £9 sterling, 0 pence, to £12 million sterling, 0 pence, a year. By the time severance and contract termination payouts were done, Red Bull could have easily handed him £50 million sterling, 0 pence, just to walk away. That's not a golden handshake, that's a solid gold shove out the door. But here's the thing, this wasn't just about performance. Sure, Red Bull had a dip on track, and there were whispers of internal tensions, but the root of Horner's downfall goes back to one moment, October 22, 2022. That's the day Dietrich Mateschitz, the Red Bull founder and Horner's biggest backer, passed away. When Mateschitz was alive, Horner had autonomy. He didn't have to answer to micromanaging executives or marketing-driven suits. It was just him and the mission. Win races, win titles, build a dynasty. After Mateschitz's death, control of the Red Bull empire was split between 3 Austrian executives. That's where Oliver Mintzlaff enters the story. A former football boss at RB Leipzig with zero motorsport roots, Mintzlaff didn't share Horner's vision and, more importantly, didn't like being told no. And Horner? He told him no in the most public way possible. Mintzlaff had championed a deal to bring Porsche in as a 50% partner in Red Bull Racing. On paper, it looked like a financial and branding win, but Horner saw it differently. That deal would have meant losing control, and for a guy who had spent nearly 20 years building the team from scratch, that was non-negotiable. So Horner used his influence with the Thai majority owners to kill the deal. Porsche was out, Mintzlaff was humiliated. That moment right there was the point of no return. Once Mintzlaff assumed more control of Red Bull following Mateschitz's passing, Horner's fate was sealed, and the final nail in the coffin, Red Bull's on-track dip, Verstappen's struggles, and a series of off-track controversies that gave Mintzlaff all the ammo he needed. So now, for the first time in 19 years, Christian Horner is completely out of the Red Bull system. No titles, no positions, no lingering hand on the wheel. But don't get it twisted, this story's not ending. If anything, it's just shifting lanes. Cause Horner isn't done with Formula One, not even close. Christian Horner doesn't seem like the kind of guy who'd take his payout and disappear into the sunset. Formula One is in his blood. The paddock, the pressure, the politics, he thrived in that environment. And now that he's a free agent, there's already chatter about where he could land next. Some names floated around early, Ferrari for example, but those doors have quietly closed. Fred Vasseur just inked a fresh deal with the Prancing Horse, locking down the team principal spot many assumed Horner would chase, which leaves one very different, very messy option, Alpine. On the surface, Alpine might seem like a massive downgrade. The team has been struggling for years, bouncing between mediocrity and mild chaos. They've got speed and flashes, sure, but no consistency, no real direction, and no top-tier leadership. That's where the story gets interesting, because what Alpine lacks in performance, they might make up for in opportunity. For someone like Horner, this could be more than just a return to the paddock, it could be a resurrection project. Right now, Alpine is in a weird limbo. Renault technically owns the team, but they've clearly taken a step back. They recently killed their factory engine project and decided to run with Mercedes power units from 2026. That move, for anyone paying attention, felt like a quiet surrender. If a manufacturer gives up building their own engines, they're not in this for pride anymore. They're in survival mode. And survival mode often means restructuring or, more likely, selling. But Renault insists they're not selling. Instead, they've brought in Flavio Briatore, the same guy who once ran Benetton and Renault in the glory days, to be the new puppet master. He's not officially labeled team principal, but everyone knows he's calling the shots for now. Still, Briatore is a short-term play. He's old school F1, all backroom deals and cigar smoke. The modern sport doesn't run on charisma anymore. It runs on data, vision, and control. And that's where Horner fits in. He's proven he can build a team from the ground up. He did it once with Red Bull, taking them from flashy newcomers to multi-time champions. He understands how to run every part of a team, from hiring technical minds to handling the media circus. Alpine doesn't just need a leader, they need a full reset. They need someone with credibility, pull, and the nerve to burn everything down and rebuild it the right way. Horner is one of the few who can pull that off. There's also something deeper at play here. At Red Bull, Horner always wanted more than just the title of team principal. He wanted ownership. It always bugged him that Toto Wolff had a stake in Mercedes, while he was just an employee. Sure, he had influence, but he never had equity. And in the long run, ownership means security, control, legacy. Alpine could be that chance. It's not impossible to imagine Horner pulling in some serious backers, maybe even investors from the Middle East who are already sniffing around Formula One as a growing financial asset, and buying a chunk of the team. Not enough to own it entirely, but enough to call shots, shape the future, and finally wear the dual hat of boss and stakeholder. That's a level of control he never had before, even in his Red Bull prime. This isn't just a comeback, it's a power move waiting to happen. If Horner joins Alpine, he's not joining as a guy trying to stay relevant. He's coming in with a chip on his shoulder, a point to prove, and a long-term vision that could flip the paddock upside down. The wild card in all of this isn't just Christian Horner, it's money. Not the severance millions already in his bank account, but the potential capital he could unlock. Formula One has become a magnet for high net worth individuals, sovereign wealth funds, and global brands looking to plant a flag in one of the fastest growing sports in the world. And Horner, with his connections, reputation, and proven track record, could be the missing piece that turns Alpine into something actually worth investing in. Look at the current state of the F1 market. Teams that were once financial burdens are now billion-dollar assets. Liberty Media's stewardship of the sport has turned F1 into a sleek global entertainment product, and investors have noticed. Buying into an F1 team is no longer a vanity project, it's a strategic investment with year-on-year growth, especially if you attach that investment to someone who knows how to run the show. That's the Christian Horner pitch. He's not just a team boss, he's a brand, and there are plenty of people who would take that pitch seriously. The Middle East, for one, is already deeply embedded in Formula One, from track ownership to sponsorship deals. Countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE have made it clear they want more than race weekends. They want equity. A Horner-led Alpine, backed by a Gulf state or private capital fund, would instantly gain not just financial firepower, but credibility and global relevance. There's also the narrative advantage. Everyone loves a redemption arc, and Horner's story would be tailor-made for it. A legendary figure booted from the empire he built, returning to take over a floundering underdog and turning them into a contender again? That's the kind of drama that sells headlines and documentary episodes. Drive to Survive producers would have a field day. But there's one last detail that makes this potential move even more compelling. Alpine needs him as much as he might need them. The team has been in a weird identity crisis for years. They've changed names, leadership, branding, and strategy more times than some teams have scored points. And despite all the reboots, they've never managed to establish a clear long-term vision. Horner could give them that, not just in terms of racing philosophy, but in terms of building a culture. Red Bull's success wasn't just about fast cars. It was about mindset, structure, belief. Alpine doesn't have that. Not yet. And Horner, for all the controversy and ego and stubbornness, does. He's ruthless when he needs to be, loyal when it counts, and strategic in a way few in the sport can match. He sees the long game, and that's exactly what Alpine has been missing. It also gives him the one thing he couldn't quite get at Red Bull: legacy on his own terms. If he joins Alpine and turns them into a title-winning team, it won't be because of Honda or Adrian Newey or a stacked driver lineup. It'll be because he rebuilt a team from the ashes, and this time with a seat at the ownership table, it'll be his name on the foundation. There's risk, sure. Alpine isn't Red Bull. They're disorganized, politically messy, and not exactly the sexiest name on the grid. But maybe that's the appeal. Horner doesn't need another polished machine, he needs a project. A chance to prove that what he built at Red Bull wasn't luck or timing, it was him. And if he pulls it off, he won't just be back in Formula One, he'll be more powerful than ever.